Oh, hello there. Let's see. Yes, my microphone is on. Great. That's always a good thing. Uh, I'm a little excited this morning to have a guest today. Uh, Also, a broadcaster from Austin and a friend of mine. I've known him for about for 14, 15 years. It's a morning, and he used to broadcast late at night program called Wide Awake, which is what I'm trying to accomplish here um, with the coffee. So, boy, I may be very quiet. I may be very quiet. I'm told that when I switch to the other thing, I'm not so quiet. So let me run the intro and then we'll start. All right. This is, ladies and gentlemen, I introduce to you the wonderful, fabulous Braylon Jenkins, everybody. Give us a little audio. You can introduce yourself too, so I can get a level on your voice and make sure everyone can hear.
Sounds
Uh,
good.
yeah.
Good morning. My name is Braylon Jenkins. I go by BrayJ when I'm doing anything media related. And of course, as Marcus mentioned, Devontae, we have gone back 14, 15 years now, which is crazy because time flies. So,
But yeah. Okay, so how's that sound to everybody? Can y'all hear me? Can y'all hear him? Is that all right? I'm pretty sure it's good. I do have to adjust the volume on the different scenes. It's like when I change a scene, my mic volume is different when I go to a different scene. I just want to make sure that everyone can hear, and it looks like uh, everyone can. Good morning, Witness. Good morning, Barb. Good morning, Hans Christian Swartz. Hey, I'm surprised you're up. Good morning, Amy. I'm not surprised you're up. Morning, Travis. That's my brother.
good
Bray J, Trav.
morning.
Um, Boost my volume. All right. Well, I can do that. Let me do the blend as well. Oh, I hear what you're talking about now because I'm monitoring what I. Blah 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 blah. Y'all stop yelling. First of all, you're yelling. Advanced audio properties. I'll give myself a 3 dB boost. 3.1. Okay. How's that? And then Braylon, over to
Yes,
you.
sir.
Matt,
All right.
it's Matt. Blah, 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 check volume.
All
Want
right.
to make sure my volume, Braylon's.
Good morning. Sounding good so far?
Well, keep talking, my man.
Okay. So
Yeah.
we went out last night. So me waking up at this hour is solely for you because I love you.
Oh, where'd y'all go?
So normally on Sunday nights they have an event called Noche Latina, and it's one of the premier Latin events. So we go to support the DJ and the hosts, and they have dancers, and it's really cool. So we started off our week, if you want to consider Sunday the start of the week, the right way, but
Hell yeah.
late night. Yeah.
Oh, well, how late? Like
I think we got home about
sun coming up late?
3
Uh,
3:30.
Okay. Not sun coming up late. I
No,
mean,
no,
I do
only
that
because I had.
shit gaming, man. I'll stay up all night and I'll be like, oh shit, it's almost 5. I don't want to wait till sun comes up. Well, that's cool. And you're in Austin, right?
Yes.
Yeah, you're in Austin. Lake Charles native, as am I. Um, my Damien Mott. Good morning, Damien. Seems good enough with the volume. Witness gives a thumbs up. So hell yeah, man. Let me tell you what it is, like what this is. So like, um, I started a channel in 2015, and I told my story about having been on staff in Scientology, and then I got a bunch of views like really fast, and it scared the shit out of me. It's actually around the time we met. Around the time we met, like 2014 was when I was running the DA social media for the DA campaign for Chris, right? You were working for this city at the time, I think,
Yes.
in 2014.
Yeah, that's
The,
exactly right.
the
Yeah.
city of Lake Charles. Okay, so yeah, so basically, yeah, the I deleted the video because I was like, oh shit,
What have I done?
Yeah, totally. Like but at the same time, like I was also having marriage problems, and as you know, like a year later, I'm going through a divorce and having issues with, all kinds of shit, man. I mean, the the trajectory was like straight down for a good 4 years, 5 years, and and you remember all of that, you know. So
You weren't alone, by the way.
I know that's what I'm saying. We went through so much. We went through a lot together, whether we were
Yeah.
like together or not. Didn't matter. Like we went through a lot of shit together in those years. So It's like I'm very excited to have to be broadcasting with you because you're I feel I feel humbled because like I think you are a really awesome talent, and you've interviewed me on TV and shit. So it's like this is just me on YouTube going, talking about whatever. It started as Scientology and now has morphed into uh, many different things, even to a point to where I turned everything off because of the trolls. You
Yeah.
know, I know you've probably experienced some bullshit. You work in broadcast entertainment media. Actually,
It's interesting you say that. It's funny to me because I've actually not gotten much trolling in my life. So I don't know how I got so lucky to avoid that. But
you
most
don't
people
get
don't say anything to my face.
yeah, that makes sense. It's passive aggressive shit right behind your back.
But even the keyboard warriors, whatever, like they don't. I've been very fortunate not to have it directly. So
That's good. When I first started, I was getting a lot of that, like aggressive comments in the comment section. Some of them, it was like obvious that they were Scientology spies, or it's OSA. It's the name of it, Office of Special Affairs, and their job is to discredit you.
mhm.
And they tried at in the very beginning because there wasn't a whole lot. There was me, Chris Shelton, Aaron Smith Levin, Mike Render, Mark Headley, Claire Headley, and Karen De La Carriere. And it's a lot of these names you won't know, but there was like, I don't know, around 10 people broadcasting or making videos about the abuses and the human rights violations that go on in Scientology. Good morning, Tiff. How are you? How are y'all all awake? Damn. Usually
I think they're all wanting to support you.
trickle in. Usually. Let's see. Tiff, good morning, Ray J, and morning, Marcus. Good to see you. Good to see you too. Inca Cadiz. Hi, I can finally get you live. Good morning to everybody here. Good morning, Inca. Good morning, Bach. I missed him. Bach says 5x5. So, that's code for all good. If you didn't know.
Thank you for telling me.
Yeah, 5x5, man. Because that could really fucking. If you didn't know what 5x5 meant and you were in a precarious situation and someone said 5x5 and you thought it was like some kind of slight or threat or, it just means it's all good. 5x5, what do you mean? I know 2x4. Whoop you upside the head with a 2x4. Are you threatening me with a 5x5? Me, I don't know.
I just want to say too, I love your setup. This is really cool for me.
Oh, yeah. Me too. It's so.
This is my first YouTube interview, by the way.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, fuck.
YouTube is the new television, so I'm honored and humbled to be on your show.
Yeah. Sometimes it's more just of a ramble, just rambling. Like they'll let anybody on now. So I'm just, but whenever YouTube went to a broadcasting platform, it used to, when you would need to broadcast, the stream keys were very insecure, meaning the encoding and stuff could be problematic. But now there's a lot of security built into YouTube and all the other streaming platforms. And but managing the keys for your streams, if you did multiple broadcasting, was a nightmare. So now it's all like way easy. And yeah, there's a lot of broadcasters. Oh, there's a shitload. I mean, it's like basically when I was in high school, I wanted to have my own public access channel. Well, that's essentially what I have now. The console was donated by Ray Mitchell, who's from Maplewood, and he's glad that he donated it because in 2020 the mastering studio that he built was destroyed completely. Not that he could use this anyway, that's why he gave it to me. He's like, I don't understand this new shit, like I need the old hardware. And he invited me over to the studio and he was like, hey, can you make anything of this? And I pulled out, I was like, yeah, do you have the manual? And he was like, well, yeah. And I'm like, well, that's where I start. So we started figuring out stuff with the what it could do. I was overwhelmed as hell. There's so many buttons on this thing, and like screen. It's an LED screen, and you can configure it all kinds of ways. It's a hybrid console. But I eventually figured out how to make it a broadcast and recording console. And the COVID stimulus, you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
That got me 2 channels of really good SSL2. I can turn on the 4K boost and make my voice a little more crispy, like I just did. And what what else? I mean, I got a guitar. Bad codecs. What? Oh, Witness is talking about the codecs from back in the day. Yeah. So I would make a video and then upload it. And that's what pretty
Hmm.
much everybody did. If you did interviews, you would record it in Skype and then edit it and then upload it. And there was no live chat either. Like good morning, Tammy. Damn, it's like 8:17 where you're at. Tammy, Braylon, Tammy.
Good morning.
Uh, da. And I'm surprised. There's a lot of people here this morning. It is Monday, February 5th, 2024. And I'm here with Braylon Jenkins, who is a broadcaster as well. Has been on radio, television. Yeah, let me add, okay, so I'm waking up now.
Thank you for suggesting coffee, by the way. I needed that.
Oh man, I can't do it without it. I can't make it without it. Um, so yeah, let's go back. Let's go back to take a trip down memory lane. So like 20. Oh, this is gonna hurt for me. It might for you too. I don't know. Take it back to 20. When did you start working in broadcast? Because you were 19 is from what I remember, or 18 or 19.
Uh, yeah, 19 or 20. My first job was at Cumulus. Um, I think it was 2012, if I remember correctly.
2012 Cumulus. Oh,
I
okay,
believe so.
so you were damn was trying to think if any of the people that I would remember working with were still there at that time. Cece, was she
Eric
there?
Nielsen were there.
Harry Nilsson.
I
Wait,
don't,
who?
Eric Nielsen was over all the stations.
Eric Nilsson. Was that the tall dude with the mullet?
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Oh, wow. Yeah. That's the guy that passed me over on the promotion for a
Uh,
statistical thing. Like I was qualified for the job, but there was a statistic that they didn't have, so I got passed over on that. The okay, so Cumulus. I bet you he was a better station manager than the one we had. I don't even remember her name, but she was terrible. Eric Nilsson could. I'm talking shit already. Eric Nilsson, how is that?
yeah, actually, he was a really great boss. He was encouraging. He was old school though, and so it was difficult for me because at that time, um, I had already started my online show, which we didn't know at the time was a podcast
Mm-hmm.
because they did have an RSS feed. And so we were doing podcasting
Right.
since 2009. And he asked me because I was doing news, I was there, news broadcaster, reporter, anchor. They asked me not to do my show because they felt it conflicted with their brand and my role as their news guy. And so it was a very difficult decision for me to make, let alone respect, because I'm thinking, this is who I am. However, I took a hiatus doing my show, and I feel like that was my first mistake. I feel like I should have continued uh, throughout, all of my other gigs. A, they weren't paying me enough. B, it's my outlet. It's not like you. And that was when the conversation started about controlling from a job presence because they technically were controlling my personal life, if you think about it that way.
Yeah. City of Lake Charles, right? Well, or
Okay,
Cumulus.
just
It
media. Yeah,
it
this was
starts.
media.
Yeah, I mean, it is a controlling. There is. This is a great point that you're making because we talk about coercive control a lot here, and uh, shit, like there's a lot of people here already who have experienced it. Uh, so like when you say controlling aspects of your personal life, you know, for this job. Is, you know, it's a job.
Mhm.
I mean, yes, you are out in the public and you're a public face and a public figure, but like, what are some of the things that, like, yeah, people wonder about this shit, especially in media, like, and people are curious about it for sure because they want to know who the person that's giving them information, you
Mhm.
know, like, are they being controlled? And in some cases, the answer is yes. In many cases, the answer is yes. As if it sometimes feels like you're making some kind of deal with the devil or something. So, what kind of stuff started happening early on, I guess, in that time?
Well, so I think now it's kind of become more common, but so basically, let's say this: a news person. Take any news person, large scale or small scale. If they're doing something outside of what you know them doing, it may draw a little curiosity, right? You might say, "Oh, I didn't know that they do that too," or "Oh, I want to see what they're about," you know. And so I think because my personal life, my show was a lot about community, but also kind of pointing out certain issues or having guests on. I think, in a sense, he wasn't wrong. It would have caused some conflict because a news person is not supposed to, well, back then, and Eric Nielsen's way of thinking, a news person shouldn't share their opinion, ever. And it was difficult for me because at this time, I don't want to say 2012 was the start of it, but 2000, I'd say seven, that realm, timeline wise, a lot of personalities or even journalists started to realize we need to be a part of the conversation.
Hmm.
Yes, when we're doing our job reporting, it should be factual. Um, but when you don't have that connection, or you basically discredit your own voice, if you think about it, that's how I viewed it,
Oh yeah.
then you have a lot of knowledge firsthand. And if you can't share your personal take on it, um, I feel like a lot of the viewers maybe are missing out. Um, you
Yeah.
get where I'm going?
Well, I
And
mean,
so,
op-eds. Like, I mean, that's the whole thing. Is to do an op-ed piece, you have a journalist who has an opinion.
mhm.
Um, this you no different on, like, video broadcasts than it would be on print.
Can I tell you the truth though? What I was thinking, and I'm jumping straight into it, so hopefully
Yeah.
I don't offend. So this is what I do as a joke now. It's like a party trick when I'm back home.
Mm.
Um, but this is how I sounded on air at their radio station. So I think this is why he didn't want me doing my other show.
Yeah.
From the Kicks 96 24-hour news center, I'm Braylon Jenkins. Your complete Weather Center forecast is next. And so I didn't realize at the time what I had done, but a lot of people, like years later, realized, oh my gosh, you're him? And what people thought in their mind was I was a 40-year-old
White dude.
Caucasian male, and that is what he was actually avoiding. And I didn't realize it at the
Yeah.
time, but he
Yeah.
knew that he had gotten away with selling this visual, and that's what mattered in radio.
Yeah.
And that's what he was protecting, I believe.
Interesting. Okay, so
And
you
I was
feel.
on a country station, so
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
in Southwest Louisiana.
Yeah, man. If the tables were turned, um, it's funny because, like, from the 24-hour news center, like, if I was to,
Exactly.
anyways, yeah, it was like a secret little. Well, it's honestly radio. I think of it as radio magic. The behind the microphone of many uh, great performances. Think about Smeagol, right? Now that guy kind of looks like he could, precious, um, but some people's voices, yeah, you just never know. Like Hank Azaria, right? Oh my God, Hank Azaria can sound like anybody. My favorite role of his though is Agador Spartacus from The Birdcage. You cannot handle my. Is it too much heat? You cannot handle my Guatemalaness. My my grandmother was a voodoo priestess. She worked hard for the money. So hard for it, honey.
Oh my gosh.
You know what I'm talking about, right? You know what I'm the movie Birdcage.
Mhm. I do. I'm laughing. Your imitation so far this morning, on and off air or stream, has been on point.
Oh man. Oh, what's another quote from Agador Spartacus? Oh, Hank Azaria shot some stuff here in New Orleans about a broadcast guy who was in broadcast radio for sports.
Okay,
And you and I know like sports broadcasters, so
I'm gonna have to look that up.
dude, if you want, you will that series will probably catch you like a hook in mouth. You know, like it's funny as fuck and it's obscene as hell. And you probably have known a Brockmeyer in your career or two maybe. Uh, Lexidex.
Lisa Dix. That's
Oh, that's okay.
yeah, my production people. I love that. I do too now.
Lisidex. Okay.
Yes.
Well, good morning, Beach. That's Beachcomber. Good morning, Cucumber, aka Cucumber. Man, y'all be changing y'all's names, and I can't keep up with it.
It's funny.
Um, but I know Beach because I go Beach, which I stole from Cynthia. She does. It's hilarious when she does it. It's like she's trying to sound like a hick, but she's not. She's from Utah. Uh, Bitch. Birdcage is a great movie. Yeah, no shit. Uh, hmm. So, oh, Whitney says, "Congrats, BrayJ, first interview." I don't. Congratulations. Whitney works in technology, AI, and stuff. She's building Skynet. So I, for one, welcome our robot overlords. I'll wait for the comment on that. So okay, so like 20, Eric Nilsson running the station. So like, when did you leave the station?
Well, I think I was there for almost, I want to say 2 years, for sure a year and a half. And I went to do an interview at our local Fox affiliate. Um, the late Salima Broussard would do a community event every year called Family Day, International Family Day in the Park. And she had brought me on to assist. And so we went to do this interview. And I'm not going to mention names after this point, but the interviewer enjoyed having me on and apparently heard me on one of the Cumulus stations and approached me and said, "Hey, we're launching news again," because at the time our Fox affiliate had stopped doing local news. And they invited me to come on as a reporter. And I made it very clear I have no formal training. I do not have a degree, let alone in communications. But over the years, I've written for the newspaper. I've done this and that, and I was invited to come to Cumulus. I applied for the job. Excuse me, but I was trained on the job. Like my boss at the time trained me, and so she's like, "No, that's fine." And so I go work for them there, and basically my day was pulled. So I'd wake up every morning at 4 a.m., sometimes a little earlier. I'd have to get to the radio station. I would do news with the morning show until 10 a.m. And then this is going to probably offend some, but it's the reality of the business. They would have me record the news from 10 till I want to say 3, 3 or 4. So my what I realized later on, and this is where and I'm going to say it. It's not the wrong. I'm in the right room to say this
Yeah, this
candidly.
is trauma community, man. I mean, like, you can share shit, and as far as names goes, you just be comfortable. We
Yeah,
don't
but
want
and
you.
I do it. I do it to respect with them. But
Absolutely.
um, it was interesting in that I was technically being exploited at that age. My first broadcasting job, they were paying me minimum wage. They took me. He didn't want me doing my side show, which is what established me. And then on top of it, I get to go work at this TV station, so you'd feel good about it, and I did. And then even then, you realize I'm not getting paid for the hours they're using my voice. So from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., they're using my voice every hour. All those hours, I do not get compensation, but yet they're, basically reliant on me. And so at the time, I think there were two other anchors, or they called us anchors, reporters for the radio station. Um, but half the time they weren't there, or they were looking for other work because the pay was, you know, egregious to be doing what we were doing. Um,
It was intern
so-
pay.
sure, basically. Um, and so then I go work at the TV station, and I think I worked at the TV station for about 6 or 7 months, maybe a little less. And my boss said, "Hey, this isn't working out. Your hours are too split," because I was still doing the radio station at the time. And so I had to make a choice. I was literally met with, I guess at this point I'm 21. Uh, I was met with, you are either going to be able to work here or the radio station, but you can't do both. And that was a very hard choice to make for me at that age, because the radio station had kind of built my name, and given me this credibility. And the reality is, even though I was on a country station, I was reaching a wide
Oh, the
net.
country. Oh, yeah, especially in Southwest Louisiana, which
Excuse
might
me.
as well be annexed Southeast Texas.
And what we didn't know at the time was our broadcast. I guess they knew. I didn't know. They were hearing us all the way in Galveston because of the way that um, radio and airwaves and all that work, the way it travels across water. Basically, we were reaching a much larger populace than I realized population. And so, and they told us that more people listen to us on the radio station than the morning TV station, which the Heritage station in Lake Charles pulls in
Yeah,
hundreds of thousands, really.
definitely.
And so the fact that we were reaching more, it was kind of like, do you leave that to go do this, what is really an experimental moment, to join a new newscast? And it was just one. There was no, we literally did one news show. So when they say they brought news back, it was like, you really didn't, because it's one show. And so I had to make that choice, and it was very difficult for me to make. However, the pay was a little better. I think I went from, and I don't want to say the wrong numbers, but like 7 something an hour to 12 an hour. So, increase. Um, but my passion has always been radio. That was my hope, my dream, my goal. So leaving radio was a big deal, but I did. I left. And that was another moment where I felt I was being controlled. And, most would say, oh, that was a decision you made. But at my age, it was a very difficult one to have to choose.
Yeah, and
Um,
given I mean, if you were given an ultimatum, which is what it
yeah,
sounds like, an ultimatum, also, the reason you were even in that position, correct me if I'm wrong, is because you had built up a following and a grassroots
yeah,
thing yourself, and were yeah, a magnet with a following. So, like, I don't know. Um, in the way I feel about it, well, we've I've told you before what I think it was, but I want you to continue to talk about it in the story and the like what would be the damn reason for someone to try to control you like that and to basically I think of it as like a rat in a maze and like shutting off certain
Mhm.
gatekeeping kind of thing,
Mhm.
like make sure that you go down the right path that they want you to go down. They're like there might be a big block of cheese right there, but they're gonna go flump, shut the door.
Mhm.
And it sounds to me like they're trying to get you into one specific place, which was not radio.
Well, the funny part was it wasn't ever other than a job, honestly. It wasn't to my benefit. And I thought, okay, if I get to go work in television, maybe that'll open new doors, great opportunity. Um, and it really ended up not being that. I was, in a sense, stuck. And then I'm going to tell you something that made it worse, and I've never shared this part publicly. They had us sign a contract, okay?
Mm.
Non-compete clause, the works. And
Fox.
this one was
Was it Fox?
Fox. Yeah,
Yeah.
Fox. And this is the local affiliate, by the way. Um, well, guess what I found out later on?
What's that?
I was the only one of three others who signed.
Holy shit. Okay.
One of them cried their way out of it, and the other one refused. And I thought this is standard. And I put myself in a very horrible place because they did own me at that point.
Damn.
Um, and so over time, I'll be the first to say I think the attention you get from being in the public eye and television, no one had prepared me for that. My family had never had that, as a part of our life.
Yeah,
And so a lot
visibility,
came with it.
elevation. Yeah, there's a whole lot
A
that
lot
goes with
came.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. Especially being in news because people expect you to be um, this angelic being, as in you can do no wrong.
Yeah, it's like this
And
voice, because you're a voice in people's head. They want a good voice. They
yeah,
want what they want to hear. They don't want like, I mean, confusion and conflicted things.
right. Um, and then this is where things get a little hairy, in my opinion.
Let's
And
get
I
into
found
it.
this out. Found this out later. This is factual. The competing station, and this is a big deal. Southwest Louisiana. Um, at the time, other than the main anchor at the competing station, there were no people of color on air.
Mm,
There was just us two.
that's right.
So
Talk
our
about
competing
Cynthia.
station, our competing station hired two young black men to detract from what we had done. So they brought these two guys. No, no, seriously. And I was told this later on. One of them was a sports guy. The other one was a news guy.
Oh no
And
shit.
the
KPLC
other
did
guy
that.
actually favored me. And he and I even had a conversation years later. And he said, people would ask, like, oh, are you Braylon Jenkins? And he would have to say, like, no, and so I was dealing with the same thing on my end. And it worked. They hired them to confuse and detract and get points for their station. And it was a race thing at that point.
Yes. Yes, totally. We got, I'm looking. Okay, what? Inca says being exploited is so normalized in many areas. It's infuriating. And it was it's in Southwest Louisiana. It was more than normalized. It was standardized.
Yeah.
So what Braylon is saying is like, there was nobody on the air, people of color, uh, African Creole, Spanish or otherwise. It was just all white. And so Fox hires you, gets you on a non-compete, non-disclosure exclusive.
Hmm.
Am I right so far?
Mhm.
And then the competitor, KPLC, who has one black anchor, hires two more
Young black men.
young black men.
Yeah.
So they're like,
Which is great.
oh, no, that is fucking great. Like Cynthia Arsenault held it down for years. She was like the Oprah. She is the Oprah of Lake
She
Charles.
is. She really is. Yeah.
And
In
I
a
know,
good way.
yeah, in a good way. And she's hilarious too. Sometimes she'll cut up, but her son and got a family full of talented people like her as well.
Mhm.
But yeah, I got nothing but love for Cynthia Arsenault, even
Mhm.
though a lot of like uh, local TV personalities have reputations for being crazy, and you know she's not excluded from that.
Mhm.
But like,
Hey,
she
I
was.
joined that club, I guess.
Why the fuck not, man? Take advantage because you know I remember like you know it's like you're not getting paid a lot,
Mhm.
so why not take advantage of the social perks? You know.
Yeah.
I mean, I know I did as a musician. Like, I go to a venue and be like, and they're like $5, please, and I'm like, you know, I play here like every fucking twice a month or two times a week, or hey, I ran sound for your open mic night. Like, let
Mhm.
me in. So, I got
Um,
no problem taking advantage of those kind of perks like that.
yeah.
Um, but let's see here. Whitney says my former employer watches me on LinkedIn to see if I'm sharing any secrets. That sounds like I mean just because I know your history doesn't mean everyone else does. But I mean, so we'll continue talking. But uh,
Yeah.
I do know that some of your former employers have not only done that, but it's like stalking, right?
Yeah, it is. It is. That's crazy. Paranoia, huh?
Mm. Well, it's not paranoid if they're really after you
No, no. I'm saying paranoia on
on their part.
her former employer's part. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, totally.
Yeah. Um, so
Good
I
morning,
was doing
Brian.
the good morning. I was doing the TV thing, and this is where I had to recognize in myself the ego started to grow because it's one thing for people to hear your voice and know your name, but they have no clue who you are. I'm out in public and no one recognizes me, especially since, the media voice was different. So being on television, it changed everything. You got in public and now everyone's staring at me. I see people literally whispering like this. And it messed with me. It was like, okay, is this a good thing? Are people like, oh, that's that guy? Or are they, and it started to take a toll on my mental health. Like, I just did not understand what came with being on television, especially in such a small area.
Small town.
Um, mhm.
I don't mean to interrupt, but like
No, go ahead.
there was like because of the you being uh a voice for for this channel uh because the radio station thing, like that was a country thing, and you sounded white, like you said. It was like whenever people meet you, they'd be like, it'd probably be, "Oh, really? That's you?" Um,
Well,
but
first they denied it was me.
right, they're hard. They're like, "That can't be. Ain't no
Yeah,
way."
yeah.
Uh, you're lying to me. But the oh, where was I going? So, oh yeah, the ability to use a uh, person of color to push an agenda that was theirs, but you could espouse and represent. In other words, like they could write copy, they could have you do this or that, and it serves them. Um, and in that community, signals that it's all equal and everything's all good. And in reality, that ain't the case at all.
Mhm.
And not only that, but they're trying to control you to a point to where it's like You're only doing what they say. You are their kind of slave
And puppet, yeah.
and puppet, right? So that's
Um,
I'll go on record saying, that's the city of Lake Charles, Southwest Louisiana, and how they encourage people through the city council and how that filters out to the city and all of the businesses that occupy it, because it goes out a long way,
mhm.
even outside of broadcasting.
And from that point on, it was tough for me to balance because on one hand, I felt like I had really championed the station. I wanted to show that the local affiliate was not necessarily the same as the big network. Um, and whether you love the big network or did, or what indifferent, it was like, no, we're local though. We want you to know we really do cover local. We care about local. And I will say, I was never forced to report on anything that was untrue or in any way um, planted, or you get where I'm going. It was direct. It wasn't a agenda. However, and you and I compared notes later, and I'm not going to go into full on detail because that's like a show within itself. But there was one moment where my integrity came. Uh, I had to stop and question myself because I was going to cover this story, and trigger warning. This is right after the Boston bombings had happened.
Hmm.
And the whole reason we were going to do this story was to show that this huge scale event was safe to attend because a lot of people were nervous about being at a very
Public event that could be bombed.
heavily trafficked event. Yeah. And so the story was supposed to be very simple, 2 or 3 interviews confirming, hey, we have all these safety things in place. Well, I was being evaded. They weren't giving me the interview, and I didn't understand why. And long story short, a friend, he's since passed, he picked up the phone in his office and made a call, and they told him straight up on the phone they didn't want to do the interview with me. And so he tried to convince them, and they said, okay, send him down. So I go down, they do the interview, I get back to the TV station. This had been over 2 weeks, by the way, of me trying to get this interview. It was very simple. It was supposed to be a very simple, and I was instructed to do this story. So it wasn't my idea. Get back to the station, and someone pulls me aside and says, hey, they decided not to run the story. And I said, what do you mean? He said, they called the second you left, and they said, if you run this story, we're pulling our ad dollars for the year. And my station caved. My station did not uphold the integrity of the news station. They did not uphold the integrity of what we, as broadcasters and news journalists, adhere to, but also from a public standpoint, should adhere to. And from that point on, I really was in a dilemma every day. And I never thought about it this way until now. My work performance took a hit after that. And I think, not to say it was perfect. I wasn't trained in news media, so I've had to learn a lot along the way. But I realize now that's when my heart left. But the passion in me kind of died because I was proud of our station to say, hey, at least they're not telling me what to say or how to report. And then it happened. And you and I both know now, and I don't know if you want to go there or not. Like I said, it could be a whole nother show, so we can talk about it.
Well, we got
in
a
the future.
whole other. We got an hour. We still got an hour left. An hour and 10 minutes. Actually, an hour and 9 minutes left before we. It's a 2-hour.
Well, we found out that when you and I compared notes years later, you and I were both on two ends of this dilemma, and it was actually a safety, like beyond. Basically, coming to find out, this huge scale event that we were trying, or I was told to show, oh, it's safe, everything's fine. There was no safety plan in place.
What?
You remember this? You know what I'm talking about?
No. Sorry.
Our favorite, our most beloved festival that you and I
Chuck
mentioned
Fest.
the other day. No. The
Contraband. Was it contraband?
That was it. You remember? You were working where you were working? And
Yeah.
seeing
So
that spot?
Contraband Days is a festival that's about Jean Lafitte, and for many, many, many years, it was like, hey, let's party downtown. But because of the segregation that still is in Lake Charles, like there's literally the north side of Lake Charles, and then anything across there is basically segregated. I've gone over there, working, doing broadcasts, and was doing a community garden video shoot. Like, look at how we're making the area beautiful, and that's what's funny is that day there was a guy came out of his house, and he's like, not just him but a bunch of other people started coming out of their house that weren't at work, and they're like, where's the fucking water? And the dude at the end of the road was like, he's like, I had to turn my water off because I got to fix some plumbing. And I was thinking, well, wait a minute, uh don't y'all have separate water cutoffs? And he's
Mm,
like, nah, man, it's one per street.
mm,
And I looked into it, and basically, when they built all of this stuff over in on Goss Lane, and in Gosport, Mossville, and certain other areas, like they're like, yeah, we'll put a main here, a cutoff, and like, but like if you lost water, the whole damn block would lose it. I couldn't believe that. I mean, I could, but it was just like,
yeah,
oh my
yeah.
fucking god, this is like leftover 19 fucking 40s and 50s shit where they were like, okay, you want a damn rights, so we'll give you equal rights, but you know what? We're not putting a damn thing on every house. And when I was like, damn, like shit is still like that because it's still in the ground. And these people, that like a whole block, 8 people, ain't got no damn water until homeboy fixes his sink or
Hmm,
whatever.
hmm.
So the disparity, it's all there, but it's like, what was that movie where the kid was? It was all in black and white, and then he discovers color, and then the
Yeah, I
color.
do remember.
What was that
Yeah.
called? Someone in chat
Uh,
might remember this kid. It's a black and white movie. It's very much Leave It to Beaver, and then he discovers color, and it starts spreading, and everyone's like, "Oh no! Oh no! This is different." um, it was kind of like a retro 1950s
mhm.
vibe to it. Oh man, my memory
I know
fails
what you're
me
talking
on
about, but I
that.
haven't seen it in a long time.
Yeah. So yeah, like it
Pleasantville. Thank you.
Pleasantville.
My friend Brian posted. Yeah.
Yeah. Pleasantville is like a good uh way to think about certain aspects of Lake Charles because it's a big little city. It's about 500,000 people maybe.
You being nice.
I am. I'm being overly generous because the last
Yeah.
time I actually looked at the population it was like 300,000. But
Yeah. And that's Metro. Yeah.
right. You got all the rural stuff in the all the way to the coast. Calcasieu Parish is big. It's literally the last parish before you get to Texas. That's why I say it's basically like southeast Texas.
Southeast Texas. Yeah.
hmm Um, yeah. Sorry, I go on tangents and
You're
shit.
fine.
So
Um,
we're in
so
20.
this event,
Yeah.
yeah, well, this is 20, I want to say 2014, early 2014 or something like that. Um, and I'm gonna say this too. During this time, I didn't realize my boss, she was mentally and emotionally abusing me. And to try to give some insight, and this may be, you know, normal for most or typical, but for me, it was new. I had never dealt with this before. But the first thing she would say, and specifically to me, don't bring your personal into the workplace. And so sometimes it was hard for me because I was dealing with a whole lot. I was dealing with a lot at home, my home situation. At the time, I was dealing with not having a vehicle. I got in a car in an accident, and I totaled the truck that I had, and so it was just a lot. It was a lot for me at that time, and she had made it as though we were this family. And there was maybe only 7 to 10 of us in the studio or in this, news department. And everyone else would talk about their personal, everyone else would talk about their problems. But when it came to me, it was like the double standard. And some days she would say, "Oh, Braylon, you're doing a great job." And literally the next day, complete opposite. And not to say by any means, like I said, I wasn't perfect. I would definitely was trying to figure things out. But she hired me. She knew the situation, and yet it's this conflicting day to day. And so it got to the point where she pulls me aside and says, "Don't you miss radio?" And I said, "Yeah, I do." "Well, why don't we go ahead and get you, back there? Like, why don't we basically free you? Let's take off your shackles and let you loose. If you want to go back, you can." And I said, "But I'm not leaving." I said, "I don't believe my time is done here." And so,
It sounds like this wasn't an option, but I'm curious. Keep going.
well, it wasn't
Okay.
until and I wish I would have kept it just to have it. She sent an email to HR saying Braylon is resigning,
Oh,
and I never agreed to that. Never said I shut up. Literally, I go next door, and the HR person is like drawing up whatever, and I said I didn't resign, and so it started going downhill from there. It was already kind of rough, but there, and so I ended up having to. Things got worse, progressively worse. And this was the moment I knew. So she, my boss, went on a, I still don't know fully what happened, to be honest, but she went away for, like, I guess it was a vacation week or something, where during that week, I was nominated for an award. And it's one of maybe 2 awards I've ever gotten in my adult life or career wise. And this was to recognize my contribution to our community. And what was so, I felt, and I think everyone else would acknowledge, what was beautiful about it in that moment, the two of us that won, it wasn't the big anchors, it wasn't the big names that everyone knew. It was this one very well respected newspaper reporter or journalist,
mm-hmm.
and he had written for years, and they honored him. That he passed a few years later, I believe, and me, this young, as they would call me, kid.
Mm-hmm.
And
Def-
when I brought that award back to the station and it didn't say Fox on it,
hmm.
I think that's when that was the problem, because that was me being recognized for what I did on my own time.
On your own, yeah, yeah. This
And
isn't
that's
their
when,
achievement. This is your
right,
achievement
right.
that you get to bring with
And
you, and that you know can give you. I mean, they are afraid of leverage.
yeah. And so eventually it got to the point where my birthday came around, and it was only a month or two. This was happened very quickly. And this put me in a very, this is when I started to truly be depressed. This is when I truly started to want to take my life. This is when things started to get really difficult, because on one minute you feel loved, you feel like you are, dare I say, on top of the world. It felt good to be a part of the community in this way. And then everything's starting to crumble around me, and I don't have anything to grab onto. I'm just having to experience it. And my birthday came around, and everyone else's birthday, she would buy a cake. They would do a whole thing, and it was a big deal. I walked in that day. I didn't even get a happy birthday. And everyone saw what was going on, but no one said anything. And I've been talking to one of my friends, colleagues, and I actually lived with him at the time, her and her husband. And she was basically always like in disbelief whenever I would share what was going on behind the scenes. And it was like she was in denial. And it was because the boss had created this culture of, I'm going to keep these people close. I'm going to keep them, in my good graces. And so, of course, they loved and respected her because they felt, oh, she's loving and she's nurturing. And she's basically the hand that feeds me. And then whenever I would share what was going on, it was like, I'm lying. It was like I was literally making all this up. And so I was called in, and I was called in once before, by the way, earlier before all this was going on, and they fired me. And this
Fox?
is when I believe, yeah, this is when I
Okay.
believe in my faith because I have no clue why I would have said it because I didn't want to be there. My rule was in our family, A, don't ever leave a job without having another one lined up. But B, don't quit. And so it was bad. The people in my life probably hated being around me because they knew I was going through a lot, but they also recognized you are a young black man in television in this city, this area that never does this. Don't
No.
give up this opportunity.
Yeah.
But they didn't realize just how heavy at the time the abuse and the situation was. And I didn't either.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Whenever
so,
you have
yeah, go
a
ahead.
what you something that you said is, you know, it's typical of like coercive environments or control. No one will believe what you say,
Mhm,
because whoever's doing the coercion, they have. It's almost like it's a strategic thing where they have people that they'll abuse, people that they'll overstep their boundaries with and intimidate. But then there's people that they don't do that with at all, and it's the ones that they don't do it with. It makes it hard to convince somebody that they're doing it.
mhm,
Like my family wouldn't believe the things that my stepfather did. Some of them may still not believe, but
mhm,
they happened. But the reason they don't believe it is because he didn't do it to everybody.
mhm.
And you're a minority in Southeast Texas, annexed Southwest Louisiana in broadcast. I mean, you can't get a better, like, especially in 2014, where they're like, well, we got to get ahead of this diversity shit, whatever this
Mhm.
is. So we need to hire says here an AAM or an AAF. I don't know what that means, but it's African American. Okay, and then there's Asian. Uh, Fuck the Asians, but we'll go. We have a population of Africans here segregated across the tracks, so we need to give them a person to
Mhm.
look towards. To me, living there and seeing that's what I saw. I saw them using you because I mean, I
Mhm.
had been in the business, a while, and I just was like, oh no, train wreck incoming.
So it got worse. So when they tried to fire me, by the way, that moment, I don't know why it came out of my mouth, but I said, and they spent probably a good 30 minutes talking poorly about me to me, telling me what I did wrong, this and that. And I want to share this with you because I want to make sure I paint myself in the proper way. I got used to doing live radio. The one thing I've been able to share with people who want to get into broadcasting or who have some hopes of, you know, being in journalism, I tell them if you can do live radio first, you are going to be golden because it literally tests you in ways that nothing else can. And so I'm trying to paint the picture if I can explain this the
How do you
correct way.
mean?
So you're doing television. Whenever you watch TV, you'll watch the news anchor, intro a story, and then they'll go live to the reporter, or they'll play what they call like a VO or sound on tape. And so you're watching the visuals that the reporter is telling the story.
Yeah.
Normally, you record that,
Mm-hmm.
okay, like that's recorded, and they're just playing what you sent in. Well, because I was so, and this is the truth,
Yeah.
I wasn't the way my brain works, doing a voice, you're supposed to do your voiceover first. So you're
Mm-hmm.
supposed to go in, record, write your script, and then edit the story, or vice versa. I did it the opposite way. And so sometimes I just couldn't get it finished because we only had, you'd start off in the morning, they'd send me out to do a shoot. And so I'd say from about 10 to 11:30, I have that time to get my story together. Not always easy. And so I would do that part live. So I'm literally standing in the studio and I'm voicing over the video in real time. It freaked
What a
everyone out. They're
trip.
like, but you would not know it was seamless because I got used to radio. So I'm watching the images and I'm voicing over with my script. And they were all impressed, but they hated me at the same time because,
Well, yeah,
it's not
that's like
all
not. Yeah,
kosher.
that is
Yeah.
actually really impressive.
But because I did live radio, I was able to do that. I learned how to. So anyway, those moments, I get it. I wasn't the best reporter employee by any means, but we still put out really good information, and I was doing the best I could. And so, all that to say, fast forward, they go to fire me, and out of my mouth, I said, "Can I get one more chance?" And as soon as it came out of my mouth, I regretted it, like internally, because I didn't want to
Wow.
be there. It was like, this is your moment. You don't get to quit. Our family doesn't do that. And so in that moment, it was like, what did I just do? And do you know and this is where my faith comes in, within 30 seconds, the entire conversation shifted and they're talking about what we're going to be doing a year from now. And it was all about me and how they were going to plug me in. And it was
Hmm.
the weirdest thing. They went from talking bad about me for 30 minutes, me asking for one more chance, and the conversation completely
What
flipped.
the
It felt like I
fuck?
was, how do you say it whenever we talk about the different dimensions? It
Yeah,
felt like literally, like in that moment, they like converged, and I'm literally in the other dimension.
you're in a parallel reality.
Parallel, yes. It was crazy. And no one to this day really believes me because they're like, hold on, what? But they did. They kept me on for another, I think, 6, 7 months. And so toward the end, she's trying to get rid of me because the HR lady realized I didn't submit the resignation. So she sends it through legal.
Wow.
And so I walk in one morning, I'm about to go do my story, and someone walks up to me and says, "Oh, you're not on air today." And I'm like, "What?" Like I just went to do the story. They know she's gonna do a voiceover, like she's gonna deliver the story on air. And I had to just sit and watch. I couldn't do anything about it. And so that's when it really started. She got upset and she punished me. And
How
I had
so?
no choice but, well, I mean, basically, you can go do the work, but you're not going to be seen or heard on television,
Right. Oh,
which
right.
is the whole point.
Right.
And so I had to go above her, which of course is always very tricky, but also brings about a lot of other problems.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to her boss that was in Boston, Massachusetts. That's where this person lived.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember calling them and I said, "Hey, I'd like to talk to you about something. I don't know how to handle this." And so, of course, she played it, the other boss in Boston played it perfectly um, smooth, very caring, very understanding. We're going to get this settled. I don't like that you're having to go through this. And we're going to have a meeting. And so we had two different buildings, Fox, the news part, and then Fox, the actual, affiliate, all the
Studio.
local programming. Mhm. And so I remember walking over to the other building. They told me I had a meeting with the big boss, my boss, and HR. Do you
Uh
know I go
oh.
and turn what's it?
I said, uh oh.
I go to
HR.
turn the door. I turn the door handle, Marcus, and guess what? It's locked.
Fake meeting.
They decided, no, no.
Huh?
Well, you're right. I don't know, but I think they decided to have a meeting in the larger conference room with the bigger boss, and they left me out. They never said it was canceled or anything. And so a week or so later, I'm invited to another meeting, and it happens so fast. Like they call me in and they say, "Hey, there's a clause in your contract, um, and we decided not to renew for this next whatever period or quarter, and you're going to get this much up front." And it was so poor. Like I think it was under 2 grand, and so literally
For the
I didn't
year.
have. Yeah, well, I think it was a. I don't know how long the contract, much longer I had on my contract, but I couldn't even pay my bills with that amount. It was like I literally within that day, and this is what I meant about the mental. I could no longer stay in my place, like where I was living. I could no longer afford to be there.
Right.
And
They don't give a fuck.
no, not at all. And the worst part was the person I was living with, and maybe it was for the best, but they were working at the station. And so they literally escort me to the next building, all of this in one swoop. I had to pack up my things. They watched me do it. And then I didn't have a vehicle. So it was really weird. I called my mom, I called my friend, and I think one other person, and no one answered. And so I could feel all the emotions coming on. Like I'm water, my eyes, teary eyed, because I was not expecting the day they did it, the way it happened to happen. And I had to ask the HR lady what she offered, but she's like, I'll bring you home.
Jesus.
And it was so humiliating and just so many different confusing emotions. And so I remember she drops me off and I had to hold it together in a car ride. I get all my stuff, I put it outside on the driveway at my parents' house, and I just start crying. And I had a flashback to remembering how badly I wanted to work at that station and how excited I was to get the opportunity. And it became the biggest nightmare
Mm.
imaginable. And everyone at the station just assumed, and this is what I've never understood about my life. Not one person reached out to me and said, "Hey, what happened?" You know, they all thought I left them.
Yeah.
She painted a picture, or they painted a picture as though I got a better offer
Right.
or I chose to leave. And not one person reached out to me.
Mm.
And then I called the woman or the person I was living with, her and her husband, and I told her, hey, this is what happened. And she still would not believe me. She acted as if I had made it all up.
Yeah,
And
well, it
so,
sounds pretty fucking extreme when you think about it, right? It's like you're working in, and that's one of the common misconceptions about working in like entertainment or broadcast is that like we live these lavish, like cool lifestyles, and the money is like just assumed, like okay, like you must make more than what someone at McDonald's makes, but that's not always true. Sometimes they are manipulating talent because they actually need talent to keep people's fucking attention,
mhm,
but they can't afford the talent. So what they do is this kind of shit, and no one will believe you. It's like the same thing with my situation domestically. It's similar for a lot of people leaving coercive groups like churches, motorcycle clubs, um, even shit like Star Wars. I mean, people can nerd out hardcore, but like, yeah, like gaming guilds, Star Wars conventions, Star Wars lore. It's crazy how far it goes, but the like a lot of those things are cool. Like those, they're looked at in general to be like, oh, that's cool. You work in broadcast, or oh, that's cool. You're a musician, or and yeah, it is. And there's a, I mean, at least for me and you, because I know that you're like your heart, and
mhm,
that's like where your heart is. So like there is almost, it's like Charles Bukowski said, like I'd pay $10,000 a month to be able to write. Like
mhm,
it doesn't matter to him. Is what he was saying is it didn't matter to him how much it cost him. It could cost him his livelihood and his home, and he could be on the street. But if you take away his writing, like there's no. He was being extreme, as Charles Bukowski tended to do, but like he'd rather be dead than not be able
mhm,
to write, and he'd rather be broke than not
mhm,
be able to express himself by writing. So there's that aspect that the talent and artists get taken advantage of a lot of the time. Inked says, when you are being fired, but what you feel is complete liberation, you can tell how bad it was.
mhm.
Brian says, your ex boss sounds like a very unpleasant person. I don't like unpleasant people. Uh, Cynthia says, multiverse world.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah. And then Inked's like, oh my fucking God. to what this whole situation at Fox, man. It's just,
Yeah.
oh man.
Let me tell you.
Whitney says the forced outs in tech are extreme as well. It's nuts, like forced outs. I guess that's kind of what uh, she's comparing this to, being forced
So the
out.
irony is, I'm in Austin, and I didn't know. I'm not very involved in the tech world at all. So a lot of people that I've met who work for Apple and Google, they're struggling to pay their bills, and I didn't know that. The layoffs, of course, are extreme. So that word is very accurate. But how they're, I think, handling the employees, it's like, be honored you get to be associated with this brand. But I think they're going through similar what I did. It's like, who's to say they're making all this money that we assume they should be getting paid? But they're struggling here in Austin, and I'm sure in other parts of the world as well. And so, just so when we talk about the workforce and we talk about rights, it's like it's unfortunate that these companies still get away with what they get away with, and we just have to put up with it because we got a job and we can sometimes put food on our table. And I'm just seeing it play out in other, as I said,
Yeah,
other
be
arenas.
thankful that you got what you got,
Yeah.
because, and you know what? That is a good philosophy. Gratefulness, being grateful for shit.
Mhm.
Um, like you and I have been in bad, like, rock bottom type stuff. And, I mean, I've never slept on well, actually I have, but that was in yeah, I was sleeping on insulation on the balcony of a building on Melrose Avenue. So I was elevated, so there wasn't nobody that could get to me. In other words, I wasn't sleeping in a homeless uh, camp. But also later in life, and around, like, you said Fox was 2014, or is it?
14. Mhm.
Okay, so yeah,
And then I went to work for the mayor or for the city again.
for the city.
Second time. Yeah.
Yeah. So where I was at that time was I was running the campaign. That's what I was doing. I was up on the 18th floor at Tower,
Mhm.
dealing with this crazy sex crazed law office that practiced all five forms of law, and they work hard and party hard. And I'm just getting like my bearings as to the timeline. Okay, so the resignation letter was bullshit, and they invited you to the meeting. What I would guess is that
Mhm.
whoever you talked to came
Mhm.
down and talked to the local
Mhm.
managers about the demographics of the area. And this is just conjecture and
Yeah.
hypothesis, but like the demographic, they were like, yeah, you don't necessarily need a black voice, you know? Like, and if you do, you can get someone else. Like, don't let this guy be trouble for you. And they
And
excluded you from that fucing meeting. So
I
you
think it
didn't.
went a step further.
Oh,
I think
do
they
tell.
realized that I really believe this now. It took years of working through it. I really think they recognized the value I had brought to their station. And their fear was if we don't handle this quickly and quietly, if he ever speaks out
You
about
could
what happened,
expose so much.
but completely ruin what they had, because they were struggling at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And so I didn't realize my value at that time. I didn't realize my worth. And that's something I had to learn the hard way. It's important to know your worth, not just with a dollar amount, but um, maintaining your integrity, but also, making sure that you are respected, no matter where you are. And so, what I wanted to say is after that happened, over the next 6 months to 3 years, I started to hear about what was going on internally. And all of the people that had didn't believe me are the ones that told me like, "Oh, you're dramatizing, you're making the situation sound worse than it was." They started experiencing what I went through because she no longer had that person that she could abuse, and I hated that for them. But even I'm gonna show you how this
You
works full
hated that for
circle.
them. Oh, I'm so sorry you don't have someone to abuse.
Well, I hate that those people end up in the very situation I was in
That
because
you
I knew
were. No, I
exactly
get
what that
what you were
was like.
saying. I was just making a joke.
No, well, so my boss, who originally had trained me at the radio station, she, as a female, she ended up jobless. And I'd gone to her at one point asking for her advice. I said, I'm doing the TV, radio, and print thing. And even that alone, Marcus, just to let you know how Southwest Louisiana works. I went to go interview a higher up police officer, law enforcement. And I walked in and I was so happy. I brought my camera with me. Or I think at the time I wasn't even doing TV. And the first thing he says to me, we're meeting, don't think you're special. We've had somebody do the paper and the radio before. And I
Okay.
thought, this is how I'm meeting you? Okay. And
Oh, that was
no
like an
one ever,
initial. That was an
yeah,
initial. Oh, don't
yeah,
think. Don't think. Hi, how are
yeah,
you? Don't think you're
yeah,
special.
yeah.
You've just. We've had people do news and radio before. All
And
right.
so no one's ever acknowledged this part. And these are the moments where we talk about history, we talk about accomplishments, we talk about, to my knowledge, there was never any African American who had done television, radio, and print at the same time in our area,
Right. Well, your social media presence was bombastic.
which I didn't know.
Everybody. You didn't know that?
I did not know that at the time.
I
I didn't know
mean,
that.
yeah, it was. I mean, the stuff that you were producing was going viral all over in Southwest Louisiana, which is in my opinion, is why you were sort of targeted by people. You may have worked in radio, but now other people are starting to pay attention because of Facebook. People were
Yeah.
sharing your stuff on Facebook, little clips and then videos, and it made you, yeah, it painted a target on your back. It's like, ooh, we can get this. He's not black, but he's black, and we can use him to show that we're, you know, diverse.
Mhm.
That's what I saw. I may be
And see,
biased
no,
and
you're on the outside. So that's, again, perception, perspective, all those things are
right.
valid. And so the boss that trained me originally in news at the radio station, she was jobless. I went to her at one point and I needed her advice. And I remember she was trying to be helpful, but the way she came off was a little jaded or almost, let's say, jealous of the situation I ended up in. And so she ends up getting hired at Fox. And so it was battle of the egos because technically she was more well known. She was a seasoned journalist. Everyone knew her name, but she had to go work for my former boss who felt, she's the HBIC. And so I had to watch her kind of take a back seat. And then I had a few people kind of telling me like, oh, it's very tense around the office, around the station. Needless to say, they all ended up going through what I went through. And I ended up talking to a young man. He was interning there when I worked there, and he happened to be at this conference I was attending with my friend. And he said, Braylon, he said, I went through the same thing after you left. Like
No
she was doing
shit.
this to me too.
Yeah.
And
Okay. So that's how many? Two already, or
that
just
came to me and said that, but I knew there was 5 or 6 others dealing with it too. There's another young man. I think you know him. He's a music artist, musician.
yeah.
He came later on and said, Bray, I went through the same thing.
So they were
And
doing
he
this to
said it hurt.
everybody.
Not at the same time. The way
Right.
she did it, though, but he said she made me feel like we were family. And then the way she would treat me aside was like I was beneath. you know,
Yeah, so
and
that's a common thing with coercive control, love bombing, and then like there is a seniority, and like
mhm,
there is a defined, like I am above you and you are below me, but we're all family and I love you.
mhm,
But it's a master slave relationship. And when the when the ringleader, whoever that is, gets upset, then everyone kind of is like freaking out and will scramble to get whatever that person wants.
mhm.
I don't know if that happens in I mean, I only worked at KPLC on contract, so I never spent day to day there.
It was bad there. Uh, I had a fellow journalist. She was older, still, I think she was in her early 30s. She had come down from New York. She was from Canada originally, but she was working in New York. So she was very aware, and so she was the one who actually gave me the hard conversation. She said, and this is before everything went left. I was at the top of the world at the time. I was doing the TV radio thing. And she just looked at me all the time and she was like, she couldn't understand me. She didn't understand my life and just the dynamic. But she said, just wait. She said, sooner or later, you're not going to be the sweet little black boy that everyone loves. When they recognize that you're a man, you're going to become a threat and they're going to push you out. And I didn't want to believe it, but
Oh
she was
yeah.
right.
No,
As
no.
soon as
Yeah.
a few years passed, I became a threat and I was no longer
Because
the
you were a
controllable student.
young professional, and
Yeah.
what Witness was saying was that she said he had, in paraphrase, reach, and that was threatening to them. Well, you did. You knew how to work it. You said you didn't even know this shit was on Facebook, but I'm going to tell you, man, like whatever it was you were doing, it was propagating with virility. So you had reach. I'd say you were like early on reaching 20 to 30,000 people in a metro, in a, they call it a metro area, but like 250,000 people in the metro area. So that's a, I don't know what percentage of the population that would be. I'm bad at math, but
Me too.
like 30,000 people early, uh, just Facebook stuff. That's pretty impressive and something that someone might be like, because I know station managers and broadcast, like terrestrial broadcasts, they're like broadcasting at 10,000 watts or 25,000 watts, and they have like, 8,000 to 10,000, 15,000 listeners, which is like an old metric for engagement
Okay, I see
or,
what you're
or reach, right?
saying.
So with
Mhm,
social media, like a maverick, like someone who just understands it innately, like you did, yeah, that's a threat. I just wanted to point that out because Whitney said that it was the threatening to them. Definitely would
mhm,
make you a target for sure. Um, roughly 12. Okay, Brian said it was about, you had roughly 12% of the population listening to you and watching you.
Um,
He's
After
better at
that
math
happened,
than we are.
thank you. Yeah, thank God for him. Um, no, man, it really got it. The worst part was after because I basically disappeared and nobody was talking to me anymore. You know, I didn't fully understand the machine that I had, you know, jumped in, and so, oh, you can't get me an interview anymore. Oh, you can't give me this or that. Of course, the people that I thought were friends, they just disappeared. They didn't even have time of day for me, and so that was rough. That was it was literally like my world, just falling apart in every way. Jobless, had to move back to my parents' house, uh, no income, and because of the non-compete, I couldn't work in media at all. And Lake Charles only had so many options anyway, so they were strangling me, and so it took I think 6 months Later, I went to the boss, not the female boss, her boss, and asked if they would waive my non-compete. And I had to cry, okay, in the meeting. And so finally he said, okay, but if I do this, you can't do this, and this. And that's why I ended up back at the mayor's office because, or in the for City Hall,
Mm.
because it wasn't worth it. It was like my hands were still tied. Like he was allowing me to go work in Beaumont. He had waived the I forget what it's called, like the diameter. You can only work, you can't work anywhere an hour outside of our broadcasting area. So it eliminated Lafayette and Beaumont. People don't realize that.
Jeez.
So I couldn't work anywhere near us with the contract. And so, by the way, I'd gone to 3 or 4 lawyers,
Mm.
and none of them would help me. And they all first they said, oh, this contract is ironclad, and it was by London Broadcasting. But I could tell they were just in bed with these people. It was their friends. And so the biggest mistake I made, if I could go back, I wish that I would have sought legal counsel outside of our area. And I didn't have the means to at the time.
Yeah.
And my family didn't know how to handle that because, again,
They're not in the business,
yeah,
right?
and I didn't have anyone to help me through that. And so um, it was a tumultuous time to say the least. But that's when my mental and emotional state really took a major hit. And I had no way to even, and I'm glad I didn't tell my story at the time just because I didn't let it define me. I did push it off and I still kept at it. I ended up having other opportunities. The McNeese radio station started. And of course, to everyone's surprise, even though it wasn't a job, guess who's hosting the morning show, still reaching the community.
Yeah. Yeah. You're still doing it.
And so even then, I was hit with a lot of attacks, people trying to silence me or get me removed. And that was a very tricky situation because I was a volunteer. And
Yeah.
so they technically couldn't fire me.
Right.
They couldn't remove me. Um,
Was this at KBYS?
yes.
Yeah, which is a
Yeah.
college station, McNeese State University.
Yeah.
So
So,
they
uh,
couldn't shut you up.
and then I ended up going through the same thing there, but I'll save that for another time. But at the radio station, the person that I brought on ended up doing the same thing that she had done at the TV station.
Yeah.
Mental, emotional abuse every day. Oh, you're doing such a great job today. The next day, what were you thinking? Why did you do that? And it was
It's
hell.
gaslighting. There's gaslighting. God, it's such a head fuck, man.
Yeah.
To think that people like, I don't know if they get this shit from TV or movies. I know you see, I know that there's like, have you ever seen The Paper? Michael Keaton.
Hmm. Hmm.
What's another good one? The Glenn Ross, like the executive types that run shit, that have run typically these kinds of organizations, aren't concerned with the mental health of anybody. There is just a bottom dollar, right? Um, and that's fine, whatever. That's their company. They can run it how they want.
Hmm.
Uh, but the not everyone hears these stories.
Yeah.
This is a really actually it's a really long story that you have because it's and there's a lot of shit that coincides because like I got to point this out to everybody that I didn't really have much of a relationship with Braylon until like I guess the fall of Braylon and
Hmm.
like I met him earlier on, but uh, like whenever there was when a lot of the bad shit started happening, I was like, you disappeared. Like then I
Hmm.
got worried. So It wasn't until later, and I don't remember exactly when, but um, yeah, lost my train of thought.
You're saying
Um,
when we met, it was toward the latter part. It wasn't during
yeah,
the
and
yeah.
since then, it was sort of like, uh, yeah, we're thick as thieves. It's like because I've had that experience myself, like not in radio, but in the music business.
Mhm.
So, and I've seen it in broadcast because I was in the music business, which involves broadcast because, they're doing TV and
And stuff. Yeah.
radio, all the promo stuff. So I would see that stuff from the sidelines. And then when I moved back to, like, Charles, my first job in broadcasting was at Cumulus, KAOK, as
And
a
it wasn't okay, was it?
producer. No, it was not. I mean, I had actually the shows were fun.
Yeah,
The pay
always.
the
That's the
pay
that's the
sucked, and
yeah.
yeah, they want the only thing that sucked that it really that I didn't like was the basketball games. And then whenever they hired somebody that they expected me to train to do my job to replace me,
Mhm.
who didn't have any skills. And I was like, you want me to hire this person who has no skills with all this old gear that I had to learn because it's so old and
Oh, forget
teach
about
this,
Tate.
yeah, to teach this person how to replace me and get a raise.
Mhm.
Like, fuck
Yeah.
you. I'm walking. I
So
went and registered. I went and registered at Masscom at McNeese. I was like, fuck you. I'll go get my
yeah.
Masscom shit and I'll just go and get the job that you won't give me. And here
Um
I am on and here I am on YouTube with you now broadcasting.
so
So
I want to tell you the irony since you just said that. Uh Back at the radio station, I ended up training that person at the Cumulus station. I was
oh,
again
really?
shouldn't have done it. I said I felt I should. I said I'm leaving. I'd like the time to train them. And so the person neglected the resources that we had. Um, and then they paid her whenever I said I worked from, they were using my voice from 10 to 4, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., and I wasn't getting paid for it. She got paid for it. And she only went into work for about an hour. She would record the entire morning and they paid her for it. And I thought, wow, the whole time I was there, the only person who stayed, they weren't compensating me and they were like, deal with it. And then this other person comes in who didn't care about the job at all, put in an hour of work, recorded the entire day of news, and they paid her for all the hours.
Yeah, some of this shit it just boggles the mind. Like it
Yeah.
just makes so little sense. Uh, Check this out. Whitney had she has a cousin who had to fucking fly to China to teach her replacement for IBM.
Wow. Wow.
What the fuck? Over. That's what I said. What the fuck? Over. It is humiliating well, to me it was humiliate. She said it's humiliating to train your replacement. I don't necessarily think it's in every circumstance it's humiliating to do that because you may have someone coming in that's like, likes what you do.
Mhm.
But for me, it has frequently been someone very much underskilled, if any skill at all, and they're just kind of like, oh, this is a cool job. I want this job. But it's like, yeah, you want this job, but like at a radio station, we're broadcasting 24/7, and like dead air is not okay. And
Mhm.
then you have to know the FCC regulations. Every hour, if you got to check this queue, and if every hour you don't have your station ID, that's a fucking, at the time it was $35,000 fine. You know? That would
Mhm.
be like in this broadcast, which YouTube is quickly becoming like the FCC, and I wouldn't be surprised if the FCC starts enforcing or they implement FCC regulations on YouTube.
Mhm.
But like every hour, I would have to do this. Well, hold on, it's not. Yeah. Like every hour, I'd be like, "You're watching in Theta, blah 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 blah. If you want to know more, go to marcusleesawyer.wordpress.com. And now, in Theta." You know, it's like
Yeah.
uh, every damn hour you got to do that, and then you also have to do not what is it, the not non-profit, but the ads that you run that are for,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
what do they call those?
Of course, you say it now, and yeah, it's basically for the nonprofit. So you run their
It's a
PSAs.
501c3 PSAs. There you go. Yeah. So
Yeah.
you have to do PSAs for like, well, the ones that we ran were like for Salvation Army and what was that other spot downtown? The Salvation Army. And my cousin, I mean, my friend Leslie Berman ran or was doing the administration for it. It was right downtown by Luna. I can't remember the name of it.
Mhm.
So, yeah,
You talking about United Way?
United Way. Yes, yes,
Mhm.
yes. Trippy.
Yeah, very interesting time though. And I will say this to you, and this is where I guess you could say I'm being or was somewhat paranoid. You educated me on a lot of what was actually happening, and then I had a few other people who were telling me what was going on in the city behind the scenes that I wasn't aware of. And at the time, I wouldn't mind calling myself naive because ignorance is bliss, and it was. For me to enjoy what I was doing, I'm kind of glad I knew a lot of the behind the scenes. But I'm actually grateful, even though it was traumatic what I went through with the job situations, and the way people handled me, befriended me, made me feel like I was special to them, and then quickly, you know, tried to burn me or betray my trust and destroy me and my reputation. I really think her trying to get rid of me the way she did protected me, because I think you would agree there was a lot of things going on illegally throughout our city, corruption that had I gotten wind of being in a news place, I would have felt needed to be brought to light on
Obligated
some
to
way.
say something, huh?
And I really do believe that
That
I
could
was
have
starting
fucked.
to,
Yeah.
yeah, my life potentially could have been in danger, not just my reputation.
Yeah, I agree 100%. A lot of, locally, if people think I would be an alarmist to say, that could happen in Lake Charles, but Lake Charles, among other cities in the United States, is a military strategic location. So there's 13% of the world's oil comes out of the port of Lake Charles. Um, it's during the Cuban Missile Crisis, it was in the top three places to get bombed. Um, so it is a very significant location that, and as such, there is a great amount of control that comes from I, I don't even know where. Like everything is controlled by the, it seems like oil. You know, some special interests in oil
The powers that be.
and the powers that be. Right? They assign their little kingdoms. And
Mhm.
here in Louisiana, we still have Napoleonic codes. So, like, civil government is different. Anybody can go to a city council meeting and propose something, and it can fucking end up in the House in Baton Rouge.
Mhm.
Uh, let's see. Do radio stations have to play the same songs in the rotation all day or what? I can explain this simply. It's just a matter of licensing. So when I do my broadcasts on Thursdays, I don't have to play them in the same rotation, but I have like 50 hours of music, and yeah, it's gonna be played recycled over and over and over again. But to to get the license for like any way you want it, that's the way you need it, stuff like that. All the Journey and the Leonard Skinner and all that shit. Like you got to pay the performance rights organizations so that they can collect for the artists and the labels, and so that costs a lot of money to get those songs because those songs have been used in movies and are very highly recognizable, call them products. So it's like licensing a product. And most stations nowadays, especially since Cumulus takeover, like Cumulus swept across the nation and took over every fucking radio station, like every last one, it seems. It was a monopoly maneuver. And so, yeah, what you hear in fucking Oregon is going to be pretty much the same what you hear in California or Connecticut or Texas. It's all going to be pretty much the same blanket licenses. It's why you hear the same shit all the time. Blanket licenses is what it's called. Whitney, what do you call it? A paraphrase. High value target. I don't know what that is in relation to.
When you were talking about Lake Charles, when it's
yeah. And that's evident when we have hurricanes. For Laura, like there was like fucking tanks and shit there, and National Guard within a day.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, all that stuff is staged just a couple hours north at Fort Polk, and then you got the Coast Guard and the National Guard, like they're all within response range, and under it's a drug corridor, a human trafficking corridor. I-10 runs right through it. The district attorney that had been in office for years loved to bust in his little section of Louisiana, which is right on the border of Texas. Don't come to Calcasieu Parish and think you're gonna commit a crime. There's big billboards as soon as you get into Calcasieu Parish. Hey, Bilf. How you doing? Bland and dull, just like right. Oh, Whitney, yeah, that's a really good observation. Like Lake Charles is like Olympia or Seattle before it boomed. It's almost like they're trying to contain it. Like, no, we can't have anything. We can have this block. You can have the Downtown Development Authority, and we'll give you one person to run it. And we'll only approve, man, some of the events that we did downtown, they should not have been as difficult to get the permits and everything to do. Because I had just gotten back from California doing events for Scientology, which is like, I mean, given LA, they're amenable to Scientology, but that's not like always, like the events that we were doing, it was still a lot of fucking work. Mm-hmm. But getting a permit to do stuff in Lake Charles is just like, man, what are you talking about? You have all this shit that even metro areas don't have. All these prerequisites, risk management up to $50 million and stuff. And it's like, what the fuck do you think's gonna happen? I mean, $50 million policy seems like a lot, but for certain events, like you got to get way more coverage. But for what we were doing and the expected turnout, like a $5 million policy would have been fine. Bach Buddy worked at 2 stations in my day as outside phone network tech. Radio station was an empty room with 2 or 3 computers playing recordings as if there were a live announcer spinning the tunes. Well, that's what I'm planning on doing this year with a 24-hour broadcast network, because at this point, we've got enough content to run it 24/7. And why the hell not? Like, we own the license. So, why not let people enjoy what, is there? The music and the music videos and the podcasts. And I mean, I'd like to sit down and sort of like make a weekly schedule and
Well, if you
playlist.
have me, I'd definitely love to talk with you about that more.
Fuck yes, yes, we
Yeah.
will. We will definitely do that. Uh, the whatever program, like I was looking at the old broadcasts that you did. There was some from the Wide Awake stuff that I really enjoyed Wide Awake. I didn't listen to every episode, but there was some really thoughtful. Uh, I enjoyed the podcast,
Thank you.
especially, and this might sound morbid, but especially whenever you're going through hard times and shit. You're talking about
Yeah, I
difficult
open up more.
subjects.
Yeah, yeah. I will
Um,
say, if I can, despite all of that, and I think all of us in some way may be able to relate. Once you get to the other side of the trauma, it usually comes with time and us doing the work. I am thankful that I survived what I went through, because I wanted to check out numerous times. It was too much, and then most people didn't understand, and even if they did, they didn't care. It's like, oh well,
that's brutal.
suck it up. And that was more hurtful. It's like no one seemed to care what I went through. They love you and adore you when you're on top, and they get to watch the rise. And
Hmm.
as you struggle, it's like, oh well, you know. I'm just thankful. I'm very thankful. I'm grateful. I learned so much. I think that I've been able to help others over the years
Oh, I know
when
you
they
have.
face when they face crisis and um, traumatic experiences. But um, if I could redo everything, I wouldn't. I really am grateful that I was able to see that early on and know what I do and didn't want. And I told you this before. I'm not going to spend the whole thing again, but I've always wanted to emulate Ryan Seacrest because
Hmm.
he was the complete opposite of what I had. It was literally what we're from my boss at Cumulus saying, "Oh, you can't do your show because it conflicts with your news persona." Ryan Seacrest gets to work in multiple areas of the industry,
Right.
and
As
no
a
one ever tells him
producer, yeah, he's working.
host,
Yeah.
on air, TV, radio, you name it, production. And so I wanted that. I wanted to be able to do that. And so I think I told you this when I finally got to meet him. I went to Times Square for one of the New Year's Eve events. He had went to do his Good Morning America show, spot as he always does in anticipation of New Year's. I shook his hand and I got this. I'd never felt this before in my entire life. I got this overwhelming sense of you don't want this.
Oh shit! Wow.
And that's when I stopped pursuing media in the traditional way, Marcus. It stopped then. It was something literally was like protecting me from that. It was like, you have no idea what this actually is.
The power of touch, man.
And he was wearing gloves. So imagine that. It still was able to, and no words, he spoke to me, but no, in the quick moment of it, I literally felt that like, you don't want this.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, we're in the we're in the last 5 minutes here, but I forgot the one what I wanted to start with, because fucking early morning stuff. We're getting our week started. Um, so why is The Aviator your favorite
Oh.
movie? Because
um,
what was it? Okay, yesterday we were doing some broadcast testing just to make sure everything was going to be good for today. And what was I saying? Come in with the milk, come in with the milk, come in with the milk, come in with the milk. The
no, you
way of the
said the
future,
way of
the
the
way, the way
future,
of the
the
future,
way
the
of the
way, the way
future.
of the future, the
Yeah.
way of the future, the way of the
Yeah.
future. And you got the reference, and I was like, oh
Uh-huh.
shit, you got the reference, and you said that is my favorite movie, and I said why, and you started to say, I was like, nope, let's hold it for the
Thank you, brother.
broadcast. So here
Yeah.
we go. Why is that your favorite movie? Let's talk about that.
So, to a certain degree, I do appreciate, our history of our country, and especially someone who loves media and business. The Titans, we hear about the Rockefellers, Carnegie, and those types. But Howard Hughes is someone that we really don't reference, and what he built is still very much so relevant today. And I was intrigued when I learned about him, and it did take, I'm sure I'd heard about him before, but it took Leonardo DiCaprio in this film to really show the full, canvas of what this man had built. And I love that he took, even though he had money, he took that money and he risked it all in so many different ways. But from aviation to the film industry, um, in other areas as well, he brought us to a whole new level um, as a society, as a world. And I just thought it was beautiful. I loved the romance in the movie. I loved the cinematography. I love watching someone who is brilliant basically start to um, what was the right word to use? Um, Almost disintegrate in front of you mentally. And yet, even though people were not understanding him and they thought, this eccentric, my heart went out for him because I'm like, this is still him. This is still that guy with all these hopes and dreams. And he was determined. And I love that. It's something about that that really kept my interest and made me feel like, in some ways, I could relate with him. I mean, no genius, but to see someone who set out to achieve things that no one else had,
I wouldn't call
and
Howard Hughes a
challenge.
genius either, because like getting in those planes and testing those new planes when he crashed into the fucking
But it was fun. That's part of the fun, man. You gotta, if you're gonna do it, then we'll do it. So I appreciated that part.
yeah, it was very. I feel like somehow he was inspired by uh, that president who went to Africa and shot a bunch of lions and stuff. Like he was very gung ho.
Yeah.
Um, I also, yeah, from what I remember, because it's been a while since I've seen it, the when you become successful, whatever the fuck that means, but when you have a lot of money and
Hmm.
and can influence things, or be able to help someone do their thing,
Hmm.
then your whole or people in your orbit start to, you become a thing. It seems
Hmm.
like you become a thing and not a person, some sort of object, you know. And I've heard celebrities talk about that. And I met celebrities who like immediately are gauging whether or not you're going to treat them like a person or
Yeah.
a thing.
Hmm.
Um, and Howard Hughes was interesting to, one of the things I think about and what came up like during 2020, you know, back then, back in the Howard Hughes days, like he was very afraid of germs. He was a germaphobe.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I just found it like I was in a bathroom one day and I washed my hands, and you know that moment in the movie where he's in the bathroom and he's like trying to get out and he's like having a fucking panic attack, you know.
Yeah.
I'm like, so what he does, he grab, doesn't he grab the paper towel and use
No, he
that?
waited.
He waited,
He waited
okay.
the entire time until somebody opened the door.
Right. Well, somebody experiencing that now, like I could see an environment where someone would just figure that's what's going on, whereas at that time someone would be like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Hmm.
You worried about germs, man? Just open the door.
Hmm.
But yeah, Teddy Roosevelt was the president that went on safari. Yeah, I think that's right. Whitney says, "Trust your instincts. The body don't lie." Is probably related to the Ryan Seacrest thing that you picked up on,
Hmm.
uh, because he didn't say anything, but you
Right.
shook the hand, and it was like, it was like an instinct. It was like,
Hmm.
yeah, you don't want this. This is. And she also said Whitney said that's what AI for. That's what AI is for. 24/7 music. Yeah, I want to do music programming, and I want to do radio programming and like comedy program. I want to do all the programming. I just start our own damn network. Like I said, it was my dream as a kid to have our own MTV, and now I can do it.
Yeah.
So there's enough content to probably run on loop for like a week at least. And if it, people submit stuff, because it's ad free at this point. But I'd love to grow it into something that could generate revenue because we all poor as fuck. I mean, I am. I'm sorry. I can't speak for everybody, but I'm trying to fund a new get the new record made. Um, so yeah, Cynthia dropped the buy me a coffee link in the chat. Appreciate anybody who has donated. Thank you, Bach Buddy and Tish, and anybody who's thrown me some money in the little bucket here. Oh, Brian said he would do a poetry program. That would be fucking cool.
Really cool.
Brian Lucas, he's an author, and he wrote a book of Scientology haikus. One of which was dedicated to myself and my late friend Douglas Scott Kramer, and it's a beautiful poem. And now it really hits hard because Doug's gone too soon. He was 50 years old. He died of arterial sclerosis. He was a heavy smoker. Kind of like I used to be, I would smoke
Mhm.
a lot. Did I tell you that I've quit? I have 3 years. I haven't smoked.
Congratulations.
Yeah, I still do nicotine. I have the little pouches. I need to work on that. Well, let's do this again, man. It's like
I appreciate you.
there's still more to talk about. Like,
That's not negative.
yeah. Well, I mean, whatever it is, like there's still more to talk about. I feel like we just kind of cracked open the story, like not the story, but like our history, and like we're both broadcasting together. When
This
is
is fun. I enjoy
it's
this.
fucking awesome to me because like the only time we've ever done that is like you've got Fox or KPLC camera dude behind you, and you're on like a schedule, and you've got to get you got to get this recorded so you can go here and do this other thing, and then go. Then
Mhm.
you're doing some indie stuff like, oh, I want to help the music community and get something for them on the side. Like you're a busy guy. So yeah. And then as far as content for a 24/7 thing, yeah, like let's talk about that for sure off air. I'd like to thank everybody for coming and hanging out with me and Braylon. Any last words, Braylon?
This was really exciting for me, and I really enjoyed. I like the community you have here. Everybody was really cool, and I appreciate what they contributed. So
Hell yeah, I love it too. And it's the way it's kind of how I like starting the week now. So I'm gonna run the outro, and then we'll talk backstage. Thanks
all right.
everybody. As always, live long and prosper, and y'all have a great week.